He crashed on Friday and bagged pole position on Saturday with an incredible pole-winning lap. Just a remarkable job from the Mercedes driver of George Russell. This is Nailing the Apex, and I'm Tim Hauraney. Coming into this one, 9/100ths of a second separated the top five following free practice 3. And like I had explained in our simulator video that we had put out onto YouTube a few days ago, we also put it into our last episode of Nailing the Apex, which you can see on YouTube on the SDPN channel. Tires were going to be a big talking point with this one. And so we'll be referencing a bit of that, a bit of tire talk within this breakdown for certain drivers, because that really affected some of them out there in qualifying on Saturday in Singapore. Back to Russell, though. Watching his final push lap from his pole winning lap, he's doing a lot of work on the steering wheel with his tools. That's the first thing that I can notice when I watched it back. Essentially, a big part of it is the B-bell settings, as we call them, or brake balance settings or brake bias settings. So basically migrating from 57% to 58.3%, which is migrating brakes from essentially the rear of the car to the front of the car. Essentially, depending on the driving style and how you're attacking a corner, where you want the brakes put. So sometimes for myself, when I was racing, and now I'm noticing it more when I've been playing with iRacing now for the past few weeks in our simulator. It's incredible. iRacing is so much fun. I think I'm getting too addicted to it. But one of the things is that setting the brake balance to where I like it for certain tracks, certain types of corners. But for George in particular, one of the things I really noticed was how much work he was doing on the steering wheel, trying to get that brake bias or brake balance in the window of where he wanted it corner by corner. And that's a ton of information he's trying to process, set up, and get ready. And then also getting the reference point, feeling the car out where it is within the braking and the cornering and the exiting, when he's shifting gears, did he come out of the corner with enough speed, etc., etc. So a remarkable lap from him. And I mean, crashing in free practice too, I thought that was the end of his weekend, seriously, because he had lost so much time on track running, on a track where a driver needs to put the laps in to build the confidence, understand the tire, understand what not only to push, like where to push, when to push, the type of pace that he needs in each type of corner, but then on top of all that, the long run pace as well, and trying to get as much data for the team so they can understand what the tires do on these long run pushes. And for George to lose the amount of time that he did, I mean, he lost, I would say, well over half of free practice 2 with his crash, even the push laps as well, because that's when the track is the most representative of the entire weekend. It's not that representative in free practice 3 because the sun hasn't set and the track hasn't cooled. And so with that comes added grip. So you don't really know where that is going to show up. For George, though, he was reminded in the press conference of his crash in 2023, something that Adam and I had referenced in our last show. And he had an interesting statement for that. He had said that he's a different driver today than what he was 2 seasons ago. He said he feels more within himself. I think what he's getting at with that is the fact that he's not having to go out and really push things when they don't need to be pushed, find his flow, find his rhythm. And that's such a big thing for a driver within the car to be in, is just finding that rhythm and finding that flow state where you're not going above and beyond what the car can do, and you're not going underneath that as well. I think for George, this is, I keep saying it, this is some of the best driving I've ever seen him do, even in a contract year when there has been a lot of pressure put on him, and there's been points where we were speaking about, will Max Verstappen replace him for next year? Won't he? Will George even have a ride? And then George also going out into the driver's market, having conversations with the likes, of Alpine and other teams as well. So I think for George, he's been absolutely incredible. This was championship caliber type stuff from him today. Really remarkable job. Big time lap. So good on George Russell for doing an excellent job on Saturday in qualifying for the Singapore Grand Prix. That brings us to Max Verstappen, who, for me, this was a big weekend, I think, for Red Bull Racing and for Max Verstappen. A sort of weekend to, if you want to make yourself really a part of the championship, the Drivers' Championship conversation, this was the weekend where Max really needed to limit the damage, let's call it, because this wasn't supposed to be a track where Red Bull Racing was going to be good. This was going to be a track where they were supposed to struggle, and McLaren was supposed to thrive. However, we have gotten a big turn of things because Max Verstappen starting P2 on the front row for Sunday's race. Just a remarkable job from Verstappen, from Red Bull Racing, the entire team turning this car around. Could he have gotten pole position? That's, I think, is going to be the question that's going to come from all of this. He was very upset with Lando Norris following qualifying, and I had some people shoot me a lot of messages on social media asking why, and Max saying after qualifying that he was going to remember this. He's going to remember what Lando did. For this track in particular, like for all the tracks, but this one in particular, since you're in a street circuit, I'll set it up this way first. Since you're in a street circuit, when you're going around the track and you have 10 cars even, let's just say 10 cars because that's what was in Q1, circulating, you're basically circulating disturbed air sort of the entire time, and you need to try and find a window where that air has settled, and that takes a few seconds for sure. For Max, he felt that he needed a lot of clean air out on this circuit today, and especially in his final push run where he felt he got done over by Lando a little bit. He felt that he needed about 2 to 3 second gap. He didn't have that because, as you can see from Max's onboard camera, Lando is just up in front of him as he's trying to navigate the final few corners. And again, those were high-speed parts of the track, and you can gain and lose a lot of time there. And if the car is unsettled or unbalanced because of that turbulent air that's coming off of the car in front, it's really going to ruin the lap. So for Max, he felt that Lando didn't give him enough room and actually allowed him to go out and execute and really see where this car could have been. He said he wasn't going to speak with Norris after this one about it. He felt that it could have easily been avoided. Kind of agree with him on that. Red Bull Racing, though, let's talk about the car because it's important to see gradually how much performance they've made with this car and how much better it's become since the summer break, since Laurent Mekies came in, since they did big experimentations on this car at the Hungarian Grand Prix. This was a track where, like I had mentioned off the top there, they were really supposed to struggle. But for Max and the team, the car has become more of an all-around race car. It's very promising for them, I think, in this championship and moving forward. And also, heard from Laurent Mekies as well. It is good when you see some long faces in the garage when you don't get the front row. On the high downforce circuits, this car is also really working, I felt. And Mekis was really happy that the team has been able to get the car working, because Red Bull Racing has brought quite a few updates and tweaks to their car ever since, the Dutch Grand Prix. Following the Dutch Grand Prix, there was the floor update that they had brought for Monza, the revised floor. But then also on top of all that, there was the new front wing that they introduced, revised front wing that they introduced here this weekend. And they're still making little adjustments with this car. And I think for Red Bull, I'm surprised they haven't given up on this car, and that they still decided to push forward with their updates for it. Because if you think about 2026 and how much time, energy needs to go into those regulations, you would think that they would have shut down trying to make this car better way earlier in the season. However, I mean, Mekis has really pushed them. And they're seeing the results from a lot of this hard work. They haven't given up on it, which to me has been very impressive. I think this type of weekend that, Verstappen has needed, obviously the weekend's not over yet. I think a lot of, I think, just a lot of it has to really come from the fact that I think Max has also been really pushing them behind the scenes, saying, if you can get me this and this, then I can do this, and I can get us where we need to go. And I think as a driver, that's a ton of confidence that he has in himself. And that is also confidence that he still has in the team. And that's a positive thing for this team moving forward into the future. And I think for Max, seeing the team and where they've come is also really important, because that gives him confidence that the team knows what they're doing and they know how to turn things around. And so I think moving forward with this, if Max can score big points on Sunday, if he can at least take points out of Oscar, then yeah, I mean, this championship is definitely, he will be in the mix. There are going to be tracks coming up that will favor Red Bull. There's going to be some that are going to favor McLaren as well, but not as many as that are going to favor Red Bull. It's hot in Singapore, right? It's really, really hot. And we had talked about the cooling vests. I explained on the last podcast a lot about that, what it is, and why it's been implemented. So the drivers, it's not mandatory. However, putting the dry ice in the machine that filters the cool water from the dry ice maker into the cool suits, the cool vests that they wear within the car, that adds weight to the car, having that machine in there. And for everybody running the same equipment, if your driver is not going to use it, you still have to run weight ballast that equals to the amount of the vest and also the machine that is on the race car. So that just equals everything out for everybody. For Max Verstappen, he's not going to be wearing the cooling vest. He doesn't like the tubes. Those are some of the things I also explained in our earlier pod. He says he feels that it should be an option that drivers can choose from, whether or not they want to wear it or whether or not they don't. But he believes that for next year, the FIA may make it mandatory. And I think for him, that takes away a lot of his control over what he wants within the car. Because let me tell you something, when you have G-forces like pressing against your body, your organs are shifting. These guys are athletes. Like, these guys are fit. They're very strong. And cardiovascular wise, the endurance and everything, it is at the topper end of athletics. Like, these guys are super, super fit. Very, very, very fit. But when you have the G-forces pressing against the body, you have the belts, you have the Hans device. It doesn't come down that far, but it can come down towards just above your chest line. And these cool tubes run along there. And then they also run along your rib cage and below that. And when you have all of this weight pressing against your body, when you're going into corners and braking, and you have the belts even pushing into these tubes are pushing into your ribs, but then your ribs get pushed into your seat behind you. And if there's tubes that are there, those tubes are going to get jammed into your ribs and into your back and into your spine, and it's extremely uncomfortable. So I can understand why Max wouldn't want to. I think there are going to be some drivers who won't be running the cool vest on Sunday, and we'll see how that plays out for them. If it's hot, I mean, look, it can help. It can really help if it's really hot. But George Russell said he was going to run it. He doesn't think it's the perfect solution just yet, but he ran it in Bahrain and he didn't mind it. Where Oscar Piastri wasn't too sure if he was going to use it in the race on Sunday. His fear was if the cooling unit itself failed, and with these cooling units in the dry ice and everything that it pumps through, if those things fail on you, which these things can, and they have, and I've heard horror stories about it, and it can be excruciating because it's pumping hot water all around your body. And so not only are you in the cockpit with, oh gosh, I mean, your balaclava, your underwear, your Nomex underwear, your fire retardant race suit, obviously your helmet on top of the Nomex balaclava, you have your gloves, your fire proof boots, and then also you have the engine that you're literally sat right in front of, and you're feeling the heat from that engine. And if the temperature outside is hot, you also have the tarmac temperature, which radiates through the car as well. Trust me, it's like a sauna. It feels like you are being baked and cooked, because I've been through situations where it has been well over 40 degrees within the cockpit and you are working hard. Like, it is a very physical work environment. Trust me, can't tell you how fit you have to be for this, and to make sure that you've been able to acclimatize to the heat as much as possible, because with the heat, your heart rate goes up and it doesn't stay at one single spot like it would if it were cooler. It just keeps going up and up. And the more you're working, the more your heart's got to work, the more the heart rate goes way up. So for these drivers, if that cool suit fails, I mean, you're basically adding another couple degrees on top of your body, which is already in there anyway. So it's very, 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 very tough. A lot of suffering for these drivers at this track this weekend. So it'll be interesting to see who takes it, who doesn't take it, and where do those drivers end up? How does the race play out? With this front row start between Russell and Verstappen, both drivers really with nothing to lose, how does that go down? Like, how do they work out turn one and turn three as well? It's really hard to pass in Singapore, so the start's going to be very important. And I think for George Russell, he knows it's going to be a tough one for himself because of Max's pace. I don't think George really understands as much about, or the team, I should say, not George, the long run pace, because they never really got to do it. Yes, they got to do it a bit with Kimi Antonelli for sure, but driving styles are different. George's setup might be a little bit different to Antonelli's at the same time. So they got a bit of data from him, but is it going to be enough? And Max's long run pace is strong. So is Oscar's. So I think for George, he's really got his work cut out for him. Now, as for where Max Verstappen is starting on the grid, not the greatest side to be starting on in at a street race, because this is a very dirty side of the racetrack where they are going to be starting from. So it's going to be important the first lap of this race. And it's going to be very important for Max Verstappen if he wants to claw back big points against Oscar Piastri as well. Speaking of Oscar Piastri, P3. I mean, what happened to the McLarens in this one? This was their time to shine. This was, their weekend to dominate. But Piastri felt there was a tiny bit left in the car, but not enough to get pole. And so they didn't find enough time in the car when everyone else was. So in free practice 1, the car was good, but not able to improve the car enough like others had in over the practice sessions throughout the weekend. But he was still happy with his performance and where he had ended up. And I think for Oscar, it was sort of that damage limitation for himself. Where's Lando? Because obviously he's his closest competitor right now in the drivers' championship standings. He knows he just needs to be in front of him for qualifying. But now that Max has entered the conversation, he's got a whole other situation up there to deal with as well. Piastri doesn't think a win is possible on Sunday, but he knows he needs to maximize his race tomorrow to get as many points as he can. As for Kimi Antonelli, P4, this weekend is his first time on this track in Singapore. I felt that he had a real shot. He felt that he had a real shot at the front row. I think that this is one of his better weekends that I've seen from him, and I feel that over the last few weekends since Toto Wolff had his underwhelming comment that was at the Italian Grand Prix, I feel that Antonelli has really upped his game, turned a lot of things around. I know there was a story circulating out there about simulator. Antonelli was in the simulator. What it was telling him about corners and grips at Monza was different than what it should have been. And I don't know how much I buy into all of it. I do think, however, that he has performed very well in the last 2 qualifying sessions in F1, and really excited to see what he can do on Sunday. He felt that his emotions took over in the car. He did too many mistakes, but he did feel it was a really good learning experience for himself for the future. And that's great if he can notice that, because it's only going to make him better. Really great job from Kimi Antonelli. Very impressive. P5 for Lando Norris. Lando hasn't been feeling the best this weekend, but he didn't use that as an excuse on Saturday following qualifying. He wasn't surprised to see where everyone was, but he did say that wherever the team struggles with front tires, they struggle just a lot as a team. And here they're struggling with the front tires and the new tarmac and the bumps and the new bits that the track has added as well hasn't really helped things. So for Norris, he's been getting too much understeer in the car. So trying to balance that out and have a good rear end has been a challenge. He was asked about other teams' development because of Mercedes bringing a revised front wing, and also Red Bull Racing bringing a new front wing for this weekend. And so that development for them is still ongoing. But for Norris, he had said that it's just too late for them at McLaren to just keep developing this car. Again, remember, the focus has shifted to 2026. So not a lot of teams really improving their cars anymore. And for McLaren, it really does sound like they've shut the taps off on this race car. So whatever they have, this is what they've got until the end of the season. He didn't feel that he could win on Sunday either, and was just trying to get the most amount of points that he can. I heard from team principal at McLaren, Andrea Stella, following this one as well. Overall, Stella had felt that the reason why they aren't competitive here today is similar to sort of what Lando had said. Braking, the curbs. He referenced Canada, Baku, Singapore right now. And normally their car gains a lot of time in longer radius corners. And the corners here in Singapore, they're too short for them to really gain any more time. So it was a lot about traction in the corners, traction heading towards the corners, like in the braking events. And Stella felt that, there is also, on top of all this, a trend where they have stopped development on their car and are focusing on 2026, but competitors like Red Bull, Mercedes have kept developing. Revised floor in Monza, like I had said, for Red Bull, new front wing here. But he also said there are other, compounding factors in all of this as well, especially with the track characteristics. And looking forward, he also felt that Austin could be a struggle for them because that's going to be the next race up, which I will be at working, the Austin Grand Prix, or the U.S. Grand Prix, I should say. He felt that that could be a difficult track for them. Corners aren't as long as they need them to be, and also said that the more competitors have also other competitors have understood and starting to understand their cars more. And I think over the season, we've seen that with other teams really starting to understand what they have. I always think like Aston Martin's a good example of took them a long time to sort of figure out their car, what's wrong with it, how can they work with what they've already got. They know they're not really going to do too much to it over the season anyways, so but how can they make it the best that it can be for what they've got? And I think for them in particular, a good example of trying to understand the car as they moved along. But so too has Red Bull, and so too has Mercedes as well. So these are also factors I think you need to add on top of why everyone's sort of caught up to McLaren in these last 3 races, including Singapore here. You're starting to see the performance shift. P6 for Lewis Hamilton on the used soft tire for his final push run in Q3. He ran out of tires. Still was a really nice lap on the used softs, but a new set, probably giving a lot of the drivers at least over 0.2 of a second in terms of performance. If he had that, it probably could have been a little bit higher. But one of the things that Lewis really talked about following all of this is his happiness with the car and how it's felt good for him this weekend. I also thought that last time out in Baku, excluding the race, he had seemed a lot more comfortable within the car. He's able to do things with it he couldn't normally do. So it's good to see him starting to get a lot more comfortable with the car. I mean, that's a positive thing. But he felt that the team could have optimized their sessions a lot better. And just little things like put in pit lane in the queue too early. And so what essentially he's getting at is when the car is in the garage for qualifying, and the tire blankets are on, the tires are staying at their consistent temperature where the driver doesn't have to do too much to ramp the tire temps up and to get them in the window where they want them. But when the driver gets sent out into the pit lane and they have to wait in a queue, that takes temperature out of the tire. And then the driver is left with trying to figure out how are they going to get proper temps into the tire where it's going to work without overheating the tire and really screwing themselves up for the session. And so for what Lewis means by, optimizing the session, that's part of what he's getting at. It's trying to make sure that when they're in the queue in pit lane, maybe not going out, maybe just waiting so they can keep the tire temperatures in the right window so he can go out and optimize the car as best as possible and get the most performance out of the lap. So a couple things there for Ferrari to obviously take a look at. Those are just certain things that they're going to have to work out behind the scenes. But yeah, good performance from Hamilton. I tend to agree with him. If certain things had have gone a little differently, I think for him in the quali sessions, then I honestly think he probably would have been a little bit higher because he did look really competitive so far this weekend. Let's see how it goes for him in the race. Sometimes he's struggled in the races, but let's see how that works out for Lewis there. Charles Leclerc just struggling to find grip on this track. Charles Leclerc P7 at the end of this one. And this is a track where he's been normally strong at, but struggled to find the grip. The car has a lot of understeer in it, he said, and the more changes they make to the car, the more it becomes unpredictable for him. So that's a scary ride. He's hoping that it's circuit specific, but the car hasn't felt good for him in the last few races. So Baku, again, normally a track where they go well at, had some struggles. He also mentioned the tires, lost some time in the last sector as well. Tires could have been a factor for Charles at the same time. I think Ferrari maybe using its tires a bit too much in the first 2 sectors. Remember, I had mentioned off the top, we were going to talk a little bit about tires and drivers. And I think that, as the Ferrari went through the first few sectors. A lot of heat got driven through the tire. By the time it got to that third sector, the tire just stopped working, or was basically overheated, and there was no performance really left in it. So hard for the driver to extract the performance when that has happened. And I don't think, again, Leclerc is the only driver struggling with things like this within qualifying on Sunday, or on Saturday, I should say. Just given the temperature of the track, temperature of the ambient as well, and then also having really hustled the first two sectors, just putting way too much heat through the tire, and also car balance and setup as well. So there's a lot of different factors, obviously, that go into tire temps. But for this track in particular, usually you want to try to not to hustle the first sector too much, so you can save that tire for the third sector, so it's just sort of hanging on. Isaac Hajar, P8. He made a pretty big mistake on his final push lap and ended up, he's punching the steering wheel. I don't know if you guys watched the replay, but he was pissed. He was super upset. He felt like he could have put something special together, but just too many mistakes. Couldn't string together one perfect lap, and he was also suffering from some clutch issues as well. P9 for Oliver Behrman. Really superb stuff from Behrman in qualifying. Did a great job of monitoring that overheating that I was talking about with the tires. So for him, managing the tire throughout the lap, really great job. And having enough tire left in the last sector, just to really go and lean on it a bit more and gain a little bit more performance, thought he did a really great job. So the setup direction that the team took was more race purposed and not as much qualifying focused. And so I wonder if they focus a bit more on quali setup, how much higher could Behrman have gotten with this car? But then again, you look at the race, and again, you got to take in tires and how they degrade and how hot it's going to be on Sunday and what's going to happen. So two different things happening there. Kind of look like they kind of settled on a setup where let's keep it as race focused as possible, a little bit of quali focus in there as well. But again, big picture, race, points on Sunday. So I thought Behrman executed the plan perfectly. P10 for Fernando Alonso. He was happy with the lap, said that the car did not have the performance they were hoping for. And again, I thought this was going to be, maybe I hyped them up too much, but I thought this was going to be a race weekend where Aston was going to be extremely strong. This looked like a track that really favored them. Alonso was quickest in free practice 1. Him and Lance were both fast in free practice 2. I watched free practice 3, and you could really see the performance had actually taken a step back. And I just think that everyone else went forward. They weren't able to take another step. And then again, you add on top Alonso talking about the race for tomorrow. Sounds like it's going to be a challenging one. He doesn't feel like they're going to be too fast enough to score points on Sunday, as the Aston Martin looks to be the 8th fastest team he felt on the grid at this track. Just considering where they were with free practice 1, free practice 2, and then free practice 3 in qualifying. So it could be a really difficult Sunday for Aston Martin. Into Q2, Nico Hulkenberg, P11. He was pretty happy with that and his progression. He's also got a new soft tire for tomorrow, so keep an eye out for Hulkenberg. I think he's definitely going to be in line for points. Alonso's got to be worried about the Sauber of Hulkenberg because he's going to be really quick. Williams, P12 for Alex Albon, P13 for Carlos Sainz. So at the end of this one, the Williams cars got sent to the stewards. And I can read to you now, finally, because when I went to record this for the first time, I got all the news from the FIA, and then Williams had sent me a team statement from James Vowles. But both Carlos Sainz, Alex Albon, they've been disqualified from the Singapore Grand Prix qualifying. They failed post-quality technical inspection of the rear wing, and it's DRS. So essentially flexing too much. I think it was 85 millimeters it was flexing when the DRS was also open. So both cars will now start from the back of the field on Sunday. And James Vowles sent out a team statement. I can read to you now. And all this stuff is over on my, it's on my Twitter. It's on my Blue Sky. It's on my threads. So it's all over the place if you want to read it. But I'll read it to you here. James Vowles says, during the FIA scrutineering after qualifying, the rear wings on both our cars failed DRS slot gap checks. As a result, Alex and Carlos have been disqualified from qualifying for tomorrow's Singapore Grand Prix. This is bitterly disappointing for the team, and we are urgently investigating how this happened. At no point were we seeking a performance advantage, and the rear wings had passed our own checks earlier in the day, but there is only one measurement that matters, and we fully accept the FIA ruling. We have a car capable of scoring points here this weekend, and we'll do everything we can to fight from the back of the grid tomorrow, and we'll immediately review our processes to make sure this doesn't happen again. That is Williams team principal James Vowles following qualifying after both of their drivers and cars have been disqualified from Singapore Grand Prix qualifying. So P14 for Liam Lawson. It was a difficult weekend for him. Didn't help himself by crashing in free practice 2 and again in free practice 3. It hurts the confidence. It also hurts the data information gathering that the team needs. But he did out-qualify Yuki Tsunoda, and those two are in a battle for the Racing Bulls seat for next season. So with the two Williams most likely, both two Williams disqualified, that moves everybody up 2 spots. So for Liam Lawson, instead of starting P14, he's going to start P12. And I think he could be in line for some points as well if they are able to get enough data from Isaac Hajar's long runs that he was able to do, because he didn't crash out in free practice 2 or 3, then we'll see. I think Lawson can be quick in the race, and hey, he's got a shot. So that's all you can really say. P15 for Yuki Tsunoda. He said there was no grip and couldn't find it and was limited by a lot of four-wheel sliding. He said there were some differences between his spec of car and Max's, and what he means by that is the front wing, because it was a new front wing that Red Bull had brought. But he had also gone on to say that Max's front wing was a little tiny bit different than what he's got, but felt that it shouldn't have affected him that much anyways, but wanted to see more data before he really confirmed or denied that having the full new front wing or the full new materials was going to help him or not. P16 for Gabriel Bortoleto. He wasn't sure if Q3 was possible today, but would have needed a really good clean lap to see it through. But in Q1, that yellow flag that came out for Gasly in Q1, that affected Bortoleto's final push lap that he was on. It was a good lap he had felt, and that caught him out. And obviously, he didn't get through to Q2. P17 for Lance, P18 for Colapinto, P19 for Esteban Ocon, P20 for Pierre Gasly. Gasly had an oil issue, so that's what I can tell you about what happened to him. He had an oil issue, so that the team was still investigating at the time of me recording this. So that was the reason for his mechanical failure. In Q1, again, Gasly's going to move up 2 spots because of both Williams drivers. Questions over on Twitter. We got one from Michael. After watching Max's onboard a few times, was there much that Lando could have done that wouldn't have affected the last run of Max's final few corners of Q3? Yeah, he could have got out of the way. That's what he could have done. And I think that probably would have been to Max's benefit. Now, the question will be, could Max have gotten pulled at, right? Was that going to be enough? I mean, it could have been Also, he may have just came up a tiny bit short because that lap from Russell was extremely good. Extremely good. But thank you so much, Michael, for the question. Really appreciate it. Thanks very much. Thanks very much, everybody, for watching and listening. I've been talking for 40 minutes straight here. Wow, where does the time go? Let me tell you. Start talking about racing. Adam and I are going to be back. We're going to record Sunday night, and the podcast should be out on Monday morning. I'm Tim Hauraney. You've been watching and listening to Nailing the Apex. And talk to you all later.